In this visual essay, I will be looking into whether it was right for Stanley Cohen to label the mods and rockers as folk devils and say they caused moral panic in Britain. The mods and rockers were two new subcultures that emerged in the 60s, which had a large divide between them. This divide ultimately led to fights on the beaches in 1964, as you can see in these images. To answer my question, I'm going to be looking into both subcultures' style, the culture surrounding them, and the media's portrayal of both subcultures. But before I go into this, what is a folk devil? Well, according to Oxford Dictionary, a folk devil is a person or thing held to be a bad influence on society. And moral panic is a public anxiety or alarm in response to a problem regarded as threatening the moral standards of society. Hebden describes style as one of the most significant parts of subculture. He says its transformations go against nature, interrupting the process of normalization. Style contains the hidden messages of a subculture and it creates unity within them. So in this section, I'm going to be looking more in depth at the mods and rockers. As you can see in the image above, the mod style was very clean-cut and smart. It was mainly influenced by mainland European countries like Italy and France due to the insurgence of importations. If you were a mod, you would want to have a face and to be somebody, and this was achieved through the fashion. As you can see from the picture, the man has a very distinct hairstyle. The hairstyles for the mods was a very significant part of their fashion choices. Their hair was normally cut short into a crew cut, a French crop or a fringe cut. And although the women in this picture seem to have a mid-length style, many women took inspiration from the 1960 French film Breathless, and taking from inspiration from Jean Seberg, the main actress, as you can see. She sports a very pixie cut, and this was mimicked throughout women's mod fashion. Although in the pictures above you can see many box-style cut suits being worn by the mods, there were also some other fashionable items worn by them. These included the parkas. For the women, you will see a running style of them wearing short skirts, and these were called miniskirts. These were supposedly introduced by the British designer Mary Quant. Her boutique happened to be on King's Road, a local London hotspot for the mods, as seen above in this picture. The most familiar stylistic choice of the mods is already featured throughout this visual essay, and this is the Italian scooter, the Vespa. In this picture, you'll see that the Vespa has been adorned with many side mirrors. This was a usual stylistic choice made by the mods as an addition to the Vespas. Moving on from their fashion choices, David Lang said regarding the mods, there was something in the way that they moved which adults couldn't make out due to their dressed-up nature. The mods only added to their aloofness to the adults as they socialised at cellar clubs, boutiques and record shops, which were hidden away from the rest of the world, like the Flamingo Club, which is pictured now. These types of hangouts were imperative to the mods' style. It added to their subdued and subtle nature of their style, which was a stark contrast from the rough and ready rockers. Jeff Nuttall addressed their dressed-up nature and described the mods as effeminate, stuck-up, emulating the middle classes, aspiring to a competitive sophistication. And this can work alongside Cohen's idea that the members of the mods originated from art schools and were dropouts of college and university. This gives the idea that these youths wanted to aspire and be middle class, and they were self-aware of their opportunities in this thriving post-war 1960s. This was a stark contrast from the rockers. They were seen to be more class-bound and working class. This was due to them inheriting the image of the teddy boys. Teddy boys were seen as unfashionable and loutish in behaviour, desirable relation to the rockers, as you can see from this newspaper article, which described the teddy boys as menaces in which the public and action of the police created a war against. This would have meant that the rockers had a pre-existing judgment from the public. As you can see in this picture, the rockers are wearing leathers, jeans and leather boots, which were practical for riding motorcycles. Rockers' fashion was mainly influenced by the Americana in the United States and was originally created out of practicality from low-income families. Additions to the rocker style could be made to their jackets. You can see that this rocker has decided to modify his jacket by adding studs, patches and pins into the leather, creating his own unique jacket. The rockers liked to portray a strong masculine image, and this could be portrayed through not just their fashion, but their behaviours, like riding their motorcycles without helmets, as you can see in this picture. Due to their rough and dirty-natured style, rockers were normally turned away from the local clubs and stylish hotspots, which the mods would be in more favour of attending. This obviously would have created friction between both subcultures. Another key aspect which influences the subcultures is the cultural impacts and changes surrounding them. The mods and rockers were brought up in a challenging environment of post-war Britain. As you can see above, rationing prevailed for a long time until 1952, and national service continued until 1963. These next pictures show the strains of a post-war upbringing. There was still a lot of austerity and poverty in Britain, especially affecting the working class families, which the majority of mods and rockers originated from. British children at the time would have had an upbringing that was surrounded by the idea of violence, hardship and austerity. Not only was this just due to their natural surroundings, but also lived through by the stories and memories of their parents and their grandparents who fought in not only World War II, but World War I as well. This kind of tough upbringing would have indefinitely directly impacted the thoughts and behaviours of the mods and rockers and the general youth of Britain. Michael Brake states that our social identity is constructed from the nexus of social relationships and meanings surrounding us. And due to this kind of idea, it would be impractical to not bring in the conversation of their upbringing into their social divide and their behaviours and actions accordingly. The next area I'm looking at is the media and the impact that they had on the divide and how they intensified and portrayed this to the public. As you can see above, many newspapers reported on the divide and the brawls between both subcultures. I personally believe it was the media which caused the so-called moral panic, as majority of the information that the public gained was through the media's control. As history tells us, for men to show strength, honour and ultimately prove themselves was conducted through violence, military and ultimately wars. The mods and rockers in this sense did not create a new concept or action. In this first picture, you can see soldiers on the beaches. This is a theme repeated throughout history. And the next picture is from the beaches from when the mods and rockers were fighting. Albeit that they're not identical, very similar ideas and visuals are portrayed. Philosopher and sociologist Marx concluded that humans make their own history, but yet they are directly influenced from encountered, given and transmitted actions and ideas from the past. Using this idea, you can say that the mods and rockers are just imitating history from which they were influenced by. So, is it fair to label mods and rockers folk devils and say they cause moral panic? In my personal opinion, I believe no, although I can see both sides of the argument. In terms of dressing folk devils, were they a bad influence in society? That's a matter of opinion, but I believe that they were not fully responsible as they were influenced by previous generations and subcultures, like the loutish behaviour of teddy boys. But also, I can't see any longevity effects of their behaviour. As for moral panic, I don't believe that the mods and rockers directly caused the moral panic that Stanley Cohen talks about. Rather, it was created through the media's portrayal of the subcultures.